Thank you for watching this Last Mile Profits video.
One of the potential product names at Amazon was I Have Space. If you're interested to find out what this relates to, take a look at today's Last Mile Profits video. Experience the future of convenience with modern Expo parcel lockers. Cutting-edge innovations that bring parcel delivery to a fundamentally new level. Follow the link in the description to find the best solution for your business. Gary, today we are going to cover a topic that you actually raised. But if I say to you that we're going to be talking about something called I Have Space, would that mean anything to you at all?
I think you're referring to this idea of using your home as like a more formal PUDO operation. I think we've all done it informally for our neighbours, but maybe not formally.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I'll tell you because this is a true story. Not many people will know about it because it comes from one of the most secretive companies in the world. When I was working with Amazon, my absolutely incredible boss, a guy called Nada Kabani, was working with me and a team of people on a project looking at actually using people's available space. And we were looking at, PUDO type space, but also potential small warehouse type space. And the working name of the project was I Have Space. Now, not many people know that. I don't know what happened to the project, and certainly the name changed. But Gary, you picked up on something I think that's happening in France. I don't think you remember the name of the company.
No, unfortunately not. But no, there is definitely an operation in France where you can register as your home as an optional place to have other people's parcels delivered to, and you'll be paid for receiving them, storing them for a brief period of time, and handing them out. For the nosy person, this is a fantastic way to monetize, the twitching curtains of when the delivery van comes down the street. Anyway, I think there'll be a certain breed of person that says, that when the delivery truck comes by and goes to a neighbour, they're up at the window. What are they having delivered today? Where is it coming from? In our street, if it's the fancy department store liveried van, you're saying, well, are they having fancy furniture delivered? So this is a way to not only check over in detail the purchases of your neighbours, but also get paid for the privilege of doing it. I mean, I can't think of a potentially better hobby than being paid to check out what your neighbours are buying.
Well, Gary, I have a slightly more charitable view, which is that you get people that like to meet and talk to their neighbors. They have spare time, and it's a great way to actually get some interaction. Maybe people who are young retirees or not so young retirees who like to interact and make a few bob at the same time. So, I'd say that probably there's another group that could also want to do this. It's not something new. We had a project a couple of years ago in Singapore, and it seems that it's quite normal that the concierge or the person looking after a group of buildings will actually offer a similar service. Of course, it may be in their own apartment, it may be in an apartment or a place that they use for their work. And in Europe, there's something that's called Homer. Does that ring any bells with you?
Yes, yeah, Homer, yes, definitely.
So Homer is a company that does exactly that in Holland. It's been around for a while, and obviously they've done something right because they got Vinted interested, and I think about a year ago, Vinted actually bought them. Gary, I actually quite like the model because you're leveraging an existing asset, you're giving people a chance to interact with society, make some money, and honestly, don't you reckon, Gary, that somebody that's local will know their neighbors better. They'll know, when's a good time, whether it's a pickup, but there may be a scenario where they can actually drop off because it's a few yards away to a neighbor who's not very mobile.
There's a cultural thing here, I think. So in the UK, it's very, very common to have your parcel left with your neighbour. It's seen as perfectly normal. If you look at any of the carriers' apps or the Royal Mail website, you can tick a box and not only nominate leave with neighbour, you can actually choose which neighbour you ask the driver to go to in preference. And this is done free of charge. It's a goodwill on both sides. I remember when I first joined Quadient, I was learning about the operation we have in Japan. And I asked the managing director of Pack City Japan at the time if this was common to deal with failed deliveries in Japan. And he looked at me with abject horror. And I said, what's wrong? He said, not only am I terrified of the thought of having to go to my neighbour to ask them for my parcel back, I'm also trying to work out what box of special cookies I would have to buy as an apology for the inconvenience he sustained for having to accept my shopping into his home. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's very different. That's one of these hugely stark cultural differences between Japan and, I don't know about all of Europe. I'm a Brit, so I know it's very common there, but I don't know about the rest of Europe.
I think you're right, Gary. It's one of the reasons that out of home, in my opinion, took more time to come to the UK, because Leave Safe and Leave with Neighbour worked so well. And because of the interactive delivery management systems in place, particularly with companies like DPD that allowed it to work. I think most of Europe is not quite like Japan, where I suspect that it's going to be a long time before something like Homer ever takes off, if at all. But I'd say that in Europe, it's probably the Leave Safe model is a bit more difficult, but a formalized model like Homer, where I understand that the people running the network for them, or the people who have space, are vetted. So, I think it's a good model. It's ecological. It's efficient.
Well, for the carrier, you go their first attempt. You don't try all the neighbours and find out they're all out, and it's actually Mrs. Miggins at number 27 who ends up with 10 parcels a day anyway. You go straight to number 27 and you give her the 10 parcels, and she makes some pin money for doing a neighbour's service. Yeah, so I was slightly flippant at the beginning of the video, but I think overall, I think it's a good solution for everybody.
Isn't it a little bit of Back to the Future, though, Gary? Because I'm not sure if I've fully got the model right, but a long time ago, Hermes used to have lifestyle couriers. It was a similar sort of thing, that you'd have people who lived locally. Maybe, I'm not sure if they stored the parcels, it was more as delivery agents. But it's the same sort of idea, isn't it?
Well, it was sort of Every and Yodel are the sort of full fat version of that model as you describe. It used to be based on distance selling, not on e-commerce. You'd have the catalogue. There'd be somebody in the street or in the housing estate would be the lady. It was always called the club book. The lady who had the club book. You'd go to her. You'd place your orders. Everything would be delivered to her house. She'd either bring them round to you, or you'd go and call on her and pick them up. And it was where Every, Hermes as it was, and Yodel, White Arrow, and Home Delivery Network, as they were originally called, grew out of it, was when Royal Mail went on strike in 1973, and they couldn't actually get the parcels to the lady with the club book. They started using managers and friends and family and neighbours, and eventually grown. Well, look what it is now. Look at the £2.7 billion behemoth of a carrier that grew out of that model that's now Every as we know it today.
Wow. We always get an interesting story from you, Gary.
When I reminisce about things when I was a child. Nobody's dialing in here to hear Gary Winter's 50-year-old reminiscences, I don't think.
Well, actually, I thought it was quite interesting. Let's see what people think. Do our viewers think that lifestyle PUDOs and perhaps small micro depots are an opportunity, or is it something that really won't take off? Looking forward to your comments. As usual, please, if you've enjoyed the video, press like and subscribe. And Gary, looking forward to some new thrilling topics in our next Last Mile Profits video.
I don't think we'll ever run out, Marek.
Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.